The Kiss That Crossed the Line. A millionaire CEO and his secretary's forbidden moment. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. Ethan Cole stands alone in his corner office long after most of Manhattan has gone dark, the glass walls reflecting a version of himself he barely recognizes. A man in his early 40s with the posture of someone who has carried too much responsibility for too long. The city humming 30 floors below like a reminder that time never waits. Not for billion-dollar deals, and certainly not for emotions he has trained himself to ignore, because emotions complicate things, and Ethan Cole built his empire on precision, discipline, and rules that never bend. The air smells faintly of espresso gone cold and polished wood, and the digital clock on his desk reads 11:47 p.m., far past when a CEO should still be working. But tonight the numbers on the screen refuse to settle his mind, because standing just a few feet away is Lily Harper, his executive secretary, still holding a thin folder against her chest, as if it might shield her from the unspoken tension that has been growing for months. Lily tells herself to breathe, to keep her voice steady, to remember the first day she walked into this building in sensible heels and a tailored blazer she bought on sale, signed an NDA with a pen heavier than it needed to be, and promised herself she would be invisible, efficient, and professional, because this job paid the medical bills and kept the lights on, because crossing any line here would cost her everything. Ethan clears his throat, says her name the way he always does, calm and controlled. But tonight it lands differently, softer, as if something in him has shifted without permission, and Lily looks up, meeting his eyes for a beat too long, long enough to notice the fatigue there, the kind that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from carrying an entire company on one's back. Outside, a late train rattles across the bridge, the sound echoing like a countdown, and Ethan takes a step closer to the window, then stops, aware of the space between them, aware of every rule he wrote and enforced, aware that none of it prepared him for the quiet way Lily has been holding the chaos together when everyone else walked away. He thanks her for staying late, a simple sentence that somehow feels heavier than the boardroom speeches he delivers without notes, and Lily nods, says it's part of the job, because that is what she has always said, even when it wasn't true. The silence stretches, charged but restrained, and Ethan turns, intending to dismiss her, intending to restore order, but instead he sees the faint tremor in her hands, the exhaustion she never complains about, and something inside him gives, not loudly, not dramatically, but enough to change the course of the night. He steps closer, the city lights painting lines of gold across the floor, and Lily's heart pounds as she realizes how near he is, how thin the line feels all of a sudden. And when their eyes meet again, there is no confusion about what this moment is or why it should not exist. It lasts only seconds, a breath held too long, a decision made and unmade at the same time. And then it happens, a brief, quiet kiss that feels less like an impulse and more like an admission, crossing a line neither of them can pretend they didn't see. Lily pulls back first, voice steady but eyes wide, telling him this cannot happen, not here, not ever. And Ethan nods because he knows she is right, because the cost is too high, because some lines are drawn for a reason. But as she turns to leave, the weight of what they have just done settles in, irreversible, undeniable, and Ethan Cole understands that no contract, no title, and no amount of money can undo the moment when everything changed. Ethan Cole does not sleep that night, not because the city outside refuses to quiet down, but because silence has a way of making consequences louder. And by morning the kiss feels less like a moment and more like a fault line running straight through everything he has built. At 6:15 a.m., he is already in the shower, staring at the tile as water drums against his shoulders, rehearsing the same conclusion over and over, that it should never have happened and that nothing can ever come of it, because the rules exist for a reason and he is the one who wrote them. By the time he reaches the office before 8, Manhattan traffic already snarling below, he has compartmentalized the memory into a locked room in his mind, the same place where he stores doubt and fatigue and anything else that does not belong in a quarterly report. Lily Harper arrives precisely on time. Her posture perfect, her expression calm. And if someone were watching closely, they might notice the way she keeps a professional distance that morning, one step farther from his desk than usual, eyes trained on her tablet instead of his face, because she knows exactly what is at stake and fear sharpens her discipline. Lily has never had the luxury of mistakes, not growing up in a small apartment where every dollar mattered, not after her mother's diagnosis turned hospital bills into a second mortgage that did not exist, and certainly not now, when this job is the thin line between stability and starting over. She reminds herself that she is here to work, to schedule meetings, to filter calls, to be the calm in the chaos. And if she does that well enough, maybe the night before will fade into something unreal, like a dream that loses its edges by daylight. But the company does not slow down for private realizations, and by mid-morning Ethan is deep in preparations for an investor call that could decide the future of the upcoming initial public offering. Numbers projected in millions of dollars, timelines measured in weeks, reputations balanced on the tone of a single answer. His legal counsel has already sent reminders about optics and exposure, about the unspoken rules that govern power and proximity, and Ethan understands them intimately, understands that even a rumor could undo years of careful strategy. He watches Lily move efficiently through the room, handing him documents, anticipating questions, steady as always, and the knowledge that she could lose everything if this becomes anything more than a secret presses on him harder than any boardroom ultimatum. Lily feels it too, the invisible weight of risk, because she has seen how quickly offices turn cold, how swiftly. Whispers can rewrite a woman's competence into something else entirely, and she has no intention of becoming a cautionary tale. During a brief pause between meetings, she glances at the framed city map on the wall, the one Ethan keeps there to remind himself where he started, and she thinks about how different their worlds are, even when they stand in the same room. He has stock options and safety nets and lawyers who return calls within minutes, while she measures security in paychecks and health insurance and the quiet pride of paying bills on time. By late afternoon, exhaustion sets in, the kind that makes every choice feel heavier, and Ethan finally speaks, not about the kiss, not directly, but about boundaries and professionalism and the importance of maintaining them, his voice controlled but edged with something unspoken. Lily nods, agreeing without hesitation, because agreeing is safer, because survival has taught her that sometimes the smartest move is to step back before anyone notices you were close enough to fall. When she leaves that evening, walking toward the subway with her coat pulled tight against the cooling air, she tells herself that this is simple, that feelings do not pay rent and moments do not build careers, yet the truth lingers with her all the way home, that once a line is crossed, pretending it never existed requires more strength than either of them realized, and tomorrow will demand choices neither of them can avoid. Ethan Cole schedules the meeting deliberately early the next morning, not because there is urgency on the calendar, but because structure is the only way he knows how to regain control when something threatens to slip beyond it. And by 9 a.m. Lily Harper is seated across from him in the small conference room that overlooks 6th Avenue, a space usually reserved for legal briefings and quiet decisions. The glass walls reflect two professionals who look exactly as they should, composed, measured, and distant. Yet beneath the surface both are aware that this conversation exists because something went wrong. Ethan opens a slim folder and slides it across the table, his movements precise, his voice calm as he explains that it is not new paperwork, but a reaffirmation of existing agreements, a reminder of expectations, boundaries, and responsibilities. Lily listens carefully, nodding, because she understands the language of caution and because she has learned that security often comes wrapped in formal words and signatures. As he speaks, Ethan recalls the first day she arrived, the way she read every page before signing, the way she asked questions without hesitation, and he realizes now that her diligence is not ambition but survival, a habit formed by never assuming protection would come from anyone else. Lily flips through the pages, recognizing the familiar clauses about confidentiality and conduct, the same ones she has honored without exception, and when she looks up, her voice is steady as she agrees that boundaries matter, that clarity protects them both. What neither of them says is that clarity also creates distance, and distance feels safer than honesty. Ethan emphasizes that nothing about her role has changed, that her performance has been exemplary, that he values professionalism above all else, and Lily accepts the reassurance with a polite smile, even as a quiet ache settles in her chest, because being valued for professionalism has always been her shield, never her reward. She signs where indicated, the pen cool and smooth in her fingers, and for a moment the simple act feels heavier than it should, as if she is sealing more than a document. Ethan signs next, his signature confident, practiced, the mark of a man used to committing to outcomes without hesitation. Yet as he closes the folder, he is aware that no ink can erase what already exists between them. The rest of the day unfolds with its usual demands, calls scheduled back-to-back, emails flagged urgent, numbers debated down to the decimal, and from the outside nothing appears different. Lily executes her tasks flawlessly, coordinating across time zones, fielding questions before they escalate, and Ethan finds himself relying on her as much as ever, trusting her judgment without needing to ask. Still, there is a new restraint in their interactions, a careful distance measured in seconds and steps, and while it protects them from attention, it also highlights what has been lost. During a late afternoon briefing with legal advisors, Ethan listens as they discuss risk management and reputational exposure, terms that once felt abstract but now resonate with personal weight, and he understands that his position grants him insulation that Lily does not have. That realization unsettles him more than any market volatility, because leadership, he is beginning to see, is not only about power but about who bears the cost when lines blur. As evening approaches and the office thins out, Lily organizes the last files and prepares to leave, her coat folded neatly over her arm, and Ethan watches her from his desk, struck by the quiet strength it takes to choose professionalism over vulnerability. She pauses at the door, meets his eyes briefly, and offers a courteous goodbye, the kind that leaves no room for misinterpretation. When she steps into the elevator and the doors close, Ethan remains standing, aware that the boundaries they have reinforced are necessary, yet unable to ignore the truth settling in his chest, that rules can define behavior, but they cannot dictate what matters, and the real test will not be whether they maintain distance, but whether they are willing to face what that distance demands from them both. Ethan Cole begins to notice the change not in dramatic moments, but in the small, almost invisible shifts that define daily life. The way Lily Harper no longer fills the silence with gentle efficiency, the way their conversations stay strictly within the edges of agendas and schedules, as if emotion itself has been edited out. Days turn into weeks, and the company moves closer to its public offering, pressure building with every headline and analyst call. Yet the more successful things appear on paper, the more unsettled Ethan feels beneath the surface. He has always believed discipline creates clarity, that if every variable is controlled then outcomes follow. But lately he finds himself distracted by thoughts he cannot quantify, moments when Lily anticipates his needs before he voices them, moments when her calm presence steadies rooms full of restless executives. Lily feels it too, the slow burn of restraint, because maintaining distance takes effort, and effort becomes exhausting when the workdays stretch past 10 hours and the subway ride home offers too much time to think. She tells herself that this is the price of professionalism, that she chose this path and understands its limits. Yet late at night, when she reviews tomorrow's calendar in her small apartment, she wonders why something that is right on paper feels so heavy in practice. One evening, a last-minute crisis erupts when a key investor threatens to pull out unless concerns about leadership stability are addressed immediately, and Ethan finds himself back in the office well after sunset, tie loosened, sleeves rolled, the glow of multiple screens casting sharp light across the room. Lily stays without being asked, coordinating calls, drafting responses, keeping the situation from escalating, and Ethan watches her work with quiet admiration, aware that trust like this is not easily replaced. As the hours pass and the building empties, the atmosphere shifts again, not into danger but into familiarity, the kind that comes from shared purpose rather than impulse. Ethan finally speaks, not about rules or contracts, but about the weight of responsibility, about how leadership can feel isolating when every decision is scrutinized and every mistake magnified. Lily listens, careful but present, offering perspective without overstepping. reminding him that no one carries success alone, even if they appear to. The conversation stays safe, measured, yet honest in a way that surprises them both. And when the crisis finally resolves just before midnight, relief settles over the room like a quiet victory. Lily gathers her things, preparing to leave, and for a moment neither of them moves, the space between them filled with unspoken understanding rather than tension. Ethan thanks her, his voice sincere, acknowledging not just her work but her steadiness, and Lily accepts the gratitude with a soft smile, one that does not invite more, but does not close the door either. Over the next few days, this pattern repeats, moments of closeness defined by respect rather than risk, and something shifts within Ethan as he begins to question whether control has always been his strength or merely his shield. He notices how Lily commands respect without demanding it, how she navigates pressure with grace instead of force, and he starts to see leadership reflected in her actions, not as authority, but as accountability. Lily, in turn, senses the change in him, the way he listens more carefully, the way he pauses before speaking, and she recognizes the rare courage it takes for someone in his position to evolve rather than defend. One evening, as they stand by the elevator after another long day, Ethan mentions a charity gala tied to the company's public image, an event that requires his presence and a trusted aide by his side, and Lily agrees to attend in a professional capacity, aware of the optics but confident in her boundaries. As the elevator doors close, Lily feels a familiar mix of caution and resolve, because this path remains narrow, yet she also feels something new, a sense that restraint does not have to mean denial, that growth sometimes begins not when lines are crossed, but when they are acknowledged with honesty. Ethan watches the numbers descend, aware that the coming weeks will test more than his business acumen, and for the first time, he understands that maintaining distance is no longer the challenge. Choosing what kind of leader he wants to be is. Ethan Cole stands beneath the soft amber lighting of the charity gala venue, the converted Midtown hall humming with restrained elegance, crystal glasses clinking softly as conversations drift between philanthropy and profit, and beside him Lily Harper maintains the calm composure she has perfected, her presence professional yet unmistakably grounding. The event is a calculated necessity, a public display of stability meant to reassure investors and partners that leadership remains steady, and every detail has been curated to project control, yet beneath the polished surface Ethan feels the familiar tension return, sharper now in a room filled with eyes that measure worth in glances. Lily manages the schedule with quiet precision, guiding him from greeting to greeting, her voice low and efficient as she keeps him on track, and Ethan realizes how instinctively he relies on her, how her steadiness cuts through the noise more effectively than any prepared remark. As the evening progresses, donors approach with praise, executives offer congratulations, and the weight of expectation settles heavier on Ethan's shoulders, the knowledge that one misstep could echo far beyond this room. During a brief pause near the balcony overlooking the city, Lily hands him a glass of water instead of champagne, a small decision that speaks volumes about how well she understands him, and he thanks her, meeting her eyes for a fraction longer than necessary. Outside, traffic moves like a ribbon of light, and for a moment the world feels suspended, caught between appearances and truth. A board member interrupts with pointed questions about leadership continuity, words carefully chosen yet edged with doubt, and Ethan answers with confidence, but it is Lily's subtle nod, her quiet reassurance at his side, that steadies him enough to finish strong. When the exchange ends and the crowd shifts away, relief washes through him, followed by something more dangerous, gratitude mixed with emotion he has been working hard to suppress. Lily senses the shift immediately, because she feels it. 2. The unspoken connection resurfacing under the guise of shared success, and she reminds herself that this is exactly the kind of moment that requires restraint. Yet as the night winds down and the hall empties, circumstances conspire in small ways, a delayed ride, a forgotten folder, a final check of details that leaves them momentarily alone near the quiet edge of the room. The music has softened, the staff beginning to clear tables, and in the absence of an audience, the space between them feels different, less guarded. Ethan speaks first, his voice low, acknowledging how much tonight depended on her, how much he has come to trust her judgment, not just professionally but personally, and Lily listens, aware that honesty has a gravity all its own. She responds carefully, reminding him of the lines they agreed to respect, the importance of protecting not only the company but themselves, and Ethan nods because he knows she is right, because leadership demands restraint. Still, as he looks at her, he understands that discipline does not erase feeling, it only postpones reckoning. In that quiet moment, when the city hums beyond the glass and the evening's purpose has been fulfilled, he reaches for her hand without thinking. The gesture simple and brief, more an instinct than a decision, and Lily freezes, her heart racing as she weighs everything she stands to lose against everything she has already been denying. She should pull away, should restore distance, yet the sincerity in his eyes disarms her, and for a heartbeat she allows herself to stay. The kiss that follows is gentle and restrained, more an acknowledgement than an indulgence, lasting only long enough to confirm what they both already know, that something meaningful has crossed a line they can no longer pretend does not exist. Lily steps back first, her expression composed but resolute, reminding him that this changes nothing and everything at once, and Ethan agrees, the weight of the moment settling in as they return to their separate roles. As they leave the venue, walking in opposite directions toward waiting cars, both understand that the true challenge begins now, because once a boundary has been crossed with intention, maintaining distance is no longer about rules, but about the courage to face what comes next. Ethan Cole wakes the morning after the gala with a clarity that feels heavier than doubt, because consequences no longer live in theory, but in the quiet certainty that what crossed the line cannot be undone. By the time he arrives at the office, messages are already queued from legal counsel and communications, not accusations but reminders, the kind that signal awareness without proof, and he understands how quickly perception forms in rooms he does not control. Lily Harper arrives later than usual, not by minutes but by intention, giving herself space to steady her resolve, and when she steps onto the floor, she keeps her expression neutral, her posture precise, because control is the only armor that fits. Their first interaction is brief and professional, a summary exchanged, a meeting confirmed, and yet the restraint carries an unfamiliar weight, as if every word must pass through a filter they did not need before. The fallout is subtle at first, a colleague's glance held a fraction longer, a question asked twice to confirm who approved what, and Lily notices it immediately, because she has learned to read rooms for survival. She does not panic, but she adapts, documenting decisions, copying compliance on emails, building a paper trail that protects not only the company but herself. Ethan watches this with a mix of admiration and concern, realizing that while he can weather speculation with his title intact, Lily must absorb scrutiny with none of the insulation his position affords. By midday, he calls a private meeting with counsel, listens as they outline options in measured language, and hears the unspoken implication that distance is no longer a choice, but a necessity. He accepts the guidance without protest, because leadership requires sacrifice, but the realization lands hard that the cost will not be evenly shared. Lily, meanwhile, receives a calendar notice for a performance review scheduled earlier than planned, framed as routine, but timed closely enough to feel deliberate, and she understands how systems protect themselves when ambiguity appears. She prepares carefully, compiling metrics, outcomes, and endorsements, facts arranged like armor, and when she sits across from human resources, she answers with calm precision, making it clear that her work stands independent of assumption. The review ends without reprimand, but the message is unmistakable. Visibility has increased, and with it, risk. That evening, Ethan asks Lily to step into his office, keeping the door open, the conversation framed as operational, and he tells her plainly that he will take responsibility, that he will create distance if needed, that her career will not suffer for something he allowed to happen. Lily listens, grateful for the intent, yet keenly aware that protection offered from above often carries its own consequences, and she responds with quiet firmness that she will not be repositioned or sidelined, that she has earned her place and will keep it on merit alone. Her words land with dignity, and Ethan recognizes the leadership in them, the kind that does not demand but insists on fairness. The days that follow test them both, schedules adjusted to minimize overlap, conversations kept brief, late nights avoided. And while the structure restores a sense of order, it also creates a hollow space where trust once flowed freely. Lily considers her options during long subway rides, calculating rent, medical expenses, and opportunity, weighing the security of staying against the integrity of leaving, and for the first time she allows herself to imagine a choice not driven by fear. Ethan, in turn, reviews succession plans and delegation charts, confronting the possibility that leadership might mean stepping aside from control to preserve what matters, and the thought unsettles him more than market volatility ever has. By the end of the week, both understand that the line crossed did not merely change their relationship. It exposed the imbalance that rules pretend to neutralize, and the real question ahead is not whether they can maintain distance, but whether they can accept the cost of doing so without losing themselves. Ethan Cole enters the boardroom knowing this meeting will decide more than strategy, because the room is filled with people who understand leverage better than loyalty, and today leverage has shifted. The long table gleams under recessed lights, screens display forecasts and timelines, and the directors settle into their seats with practiced composure. Yet Ethan senses the undercurrent immediately, the quiet recalibration that happens when confidence wavers. Lily Harper is not present, by design, and her absence weighs on him more than if she were sitting beside him, because protecting her now requires action rather than proximity. The chair of the board opens with formalities, then pivots to governance, compliance, and perception, words delivered evenly but aimed precisely, and Ethan listens without interruption, because leadership, he has learned, is also about hearing what is not said. A question follows about internal controls, another about optics ahead of the public offering, and finally a carefully phrased concern about professional boundaries, presented as hypothetical yet unmistakable. Ethan responds with clarity, acknowledging responsibility for maintaining standards and affirming that no individual has been asked to bear risk on his behalf, his tone steady, his posture composed. The room absorbs this, but skepticism lingers, because trust at this level demands proof. When the discussion turns toward mitigation, suggestions surface about restructuring reporting lines, temporary leaves, and quiet adjustments that preserve the appearance of stability while shifting consequences downward. And Ethan recognizes the familiar instinct to protect the institution at the expense of the vulnerable. He pauses, the room waiting. And in that pause he understands the choice before him. Maintain control by allowing distance to be imposed on Lily, or redefine leadership by accepting cost himself. He chooses the latter. Ethan states plainly that he will recuse himself from direct operational oversight during the most sensitive phase of the offering, delegating authority to a senior executive team and establishing an independent compliance channel that reports directly to the board. The proposal surprises them, not because it is reckless, but because it is rare, a leader voluntarily limiting his reach to safeguard integrity. He adds that any speculation will be addressed with transparency, that accountability belongs with him, and that no employee will be repositioned, sidelined, or scrutinized beyond standard process as a result. The room shifts, calculations updating, and after a moment the chair nods, acknowledging that the plan meets governance requirements and strengthens credibility rather than weakens it. The vote passes with measured approval. When the meeting adjourns, Ethan remains seated for a moment, aware that power feels different when it is chosen rather than guarded. Across the building, Lily completes her workday unaware of the specifics unfolding above, yet she senses change in the air, the way emails slow, the way conversations regain ease, and when she receives a brief message requesting her presence in a neutral conference room, her pulse steadies rather than spikes. Ethan is there with counsel present, doors open, the tone formal but respectful, and he explains the board decision, his role adjustment, and the safeguards put in place. Lily listens carefully, relief tempered by resolve, and when she speaks she does so with calm assurance, acknowledging the steps taken and affirming her commitment to professionalism and performance. There is no apology demanded, no defense required, only mutual recognition that fairness must be visible as well as practiced. After counsel leaves, they share a quiet moment, standing several feet apart, the space between them intentional and honest. Ethan tells her that leadership should never ask others to absorb consequences it avoids, and Lily responds that dignity at work is built when choices align with values. They part without lingering, each returning to their roles with renewed clarity. As Lily heads toward the elevator, she feels lighter, not because uncertainty has vanished, but because integrity has asserted itself. Ethan watches the city through glass once more, understanding that authority tested in public is authority refined, and that the line crossed has led them not into secrecy, but into a reckoning that has changed the terms of everything to come. Ethan Cole's role shift becomes official the following Monday, announced internally with careful language that emphasizes governance and continuity. And while markets respond with cautious optimism, the true impact unfolds quietly inside the building where routines reset and expectations recalibrate. Lily Harper notices the difference immediately, not in privilege but in fairness, the way decisions route through transparent channels, the way her work is evaluated by outcomes rather than proximity, and the relief allows her to breathe without feeling watched. With distance institutionalized, something unexpected happens, clarity replaces tension, and both discover that choice carries more power when it is not forced by secrecy. Weeks pass, the public offering approaches, and Ethan spends more time mentoring the executive team than steering every detail, learning to trust systems he once controlled personally. In that space, he confronts an uncomfortable truth, that leadership measured only by authority had narrowed his vision, and stepping back has widened it. Lily, meanwhile, is invited to lead a cross-functional initiative focused on operational ethics and efficiency, a role that recognizes her judgment without altering her reporting line, and she accepts with steady confidence, understanding that advancement earned openly is the only kind worth keeping. Their interactions become intentional and rare, brief exchanges marked by respect, and when they do speak, it is with an ease that suggests honesty no longer requires hiding. One evening, after a long planning session with the expanded team, Ethan asks Lily if she would be willing to review a proposal outside the office, not as an order but as a request, specifying time and place with care, making it clear there is no expectation beyond perspective. Lily considers the invitation, weighing autonomy against curiosity, and agrees under one condition, that the conversation remain candid and equal. They meet at a quiet neighborhood cafe well away from glass towers and conference rooms, a place where titles dissolve into ordinary presence. And for the first time they speak without agenda, discussing values, trade-offs, and the cost of ambition measured in missed moments. Ethan shares how stepping back revealed a leadership gap he did not know he had, the absence of voices that challenged him honestly, and Lily responds with insight shaped by necessity, explaining how power feels from the margins and why fairness must be designed, not assumed. There is no crossing of lines here, only alignment, and the realization settles between them that respect can precede romance, not trail it. Over the following days, Ethan makes a decision that surprises even him, announcing plans to establish an independent venture focused on ethical infrastructure consulting, a smaller organization built with clear governance and shared accountability, and he invites Lily to consider joining not as a subordinate, but as a partner in shaping the framework, emphasizing that the choice is entirely hers and contingent on time, transparency, and mutual consent. Lily takes the offer seriously, reviewing terms, consulting mentors, and calculating risk with the same care that has guided her life. And when she meets Ethan to respond, she does so with composed resolve. She accepts the possibility but sets boundaries that protect independence, insisting on equal stake, defined roles, and a cooling period before any personal consideration, and Ethan agrees without negotiation, recognizing that trust begins where control ends. The announcement is made publicly, measured, and credible, and the response is strong. Investors praising the integrity of the transition and the clarity of purpose. As they stand in a modest office space overlooking a park rather than a skyline, signing documents that reflect partnership rather than hierarchy, Ethan offers his hand, not as a gesture of claim, but of commitment to principles chosen freely. Lily takes it, aware that this moment is not a reward but a responsibility, and when they share a quiet smile, it is grounded in something sturdier than impulse. They do not rush what comes next, understanding that real choice requires patience, and as the city hums beyond the window, both recognize that crossing a line once led them here, not into secrecy, but into a future defined by consent, accountability, and the courage to build on equal ground. Ethan Cole and Lily Harper settle into the rhythm of their new venture with a patience that surprises them both. Weeks marked by deliberate choices rather than urgency, and the smaller office becomes a place where ideas matter more than titles. Morning light filters through wide windows, illuminating whiteboards filled with frameworks and principles, and the work feels purposeful in a way neither experienced before, grounded in values they chose together. Clients arrive drawn by credibility rather than spectacle, and as projects progress, trust grows naturally, built on clear roles and shared accountability. Outside of work, time unfolds carefully, conversations extending beyond agendas into stories of childhood neighborhoods, formative failures, and the quiet hopes that survived years of discipline. They take walks through nearby parks after long days, maintaining an ease that feels earned, not rushed, and when laughter surfaces it carries relief rather than tension. Months pass, the public offering concludes successfully without scandal, and the world moves on. But for Ethan, the real measure of success reveals itself in how leadership feels now, lighter without being careless, firm without being isolating. Lily, too, recognizes a shift within herself, confidence no longer tethered to defense, ambition aligned with integrity, and she understands that choosing her path openly has strengthened her voice. One evening, after a client presentation that affirms their approach, they return to the office to finalize notes, the city settling into dusk beyond the glass, and Ethan pauses, setting aside the paperwork with intention. He speaks plainly, acknowledging that what they built together extends beyond business, that respect came first and remains the foundation, and that any next step must be chosen freely, without pressure or pretense. Lily listens, appreciating the care in his words, and responds with equal honesty, admitting that trust has grown not from grand gestures, but from consistency, from seeing values upheld when it mattered most. There is no dramatic declaration, only a quiet agreement to allow what exists to continue developing at its own pace. And when Ethan asks if she would like to share dinner somewhere simple, Lily smiles and agrees, the decision feeling natural rather than consequential. They choose a modest restaurant a few blocks away, the kind where conversations flow easily and no one recognizes faces from headlines, and over shared plates they talk about the future, not as a promise, but as a possibility. As weeks turn into a year, their partnership deepens in balance, personal and professional lives remaining distinct yet harmonized, and when challenges arise, they address them openly, having learned that clarity prevents resentment. On a crisp autumn afternoon, standing in the same park they often walk through, Ethan reflects on how far they have come, how a single crossed line once threatened to define everything, and how accountability transformed it instead. He tells Lily that leadership taught him many things, but love taught him restraint, patience, and the courage to choose equity over advantage. Lily takes his hand, steady and sure, and replies that dignity flourishes when choice is honored, and that what they share now feels right, because it was never hidden or taken for granted. The city hums around them, ordinary and alive, and in that moment there is no spectacle, no audience, only two people who learn that real commitment is not about defying rules, but about reshaping them through integrity. As they walk on, steps aligned, both understand that the line once crossed led not to ruin, but to a path defined by consent, responsibility, and a love built carefully on equal ground.